Let's try and. Hey, guess what? Never mind my mumbling. It is Southside Sox podcast number 138. I think it is. We're sort of out of the habit of these. We skipped February. Did anybody notice? Who cares about February? Come on, that's enough a month. Anyway, March is where it really matters. We're here in the thick of spring training. We are in the thick of the World Baseball Classic. And guess what? We're going to talk about both of those things on this podcast. Along with many of my friends here from Southside Sox, I'm Brett Ballantini. Lucky enough, once again, just by a thread, still hosting the Southside Sox podcast. And it's still called the Southside Sox podcast. We haven't changed the name over yet, but that's coming. I'm sure you're on the edge of your seat waiting for the change to Sox Populi. It is coming. And we're just trying to decide what Latin phrase we're going to put in our logo now. Oh, there are Easter eggs. Anyhow, let's get right to it. White Sox, again, you can maybe carbon copy from a week ago. The team's playing maybe better than we would have expected. I mean, some of us would have expected disaster, so that's definitely better than what we would have expected. Hovering around 500. They're playing tie games. They're playing international exhibitions. They're playing the Cubs. It's really, they're not picky. They're just playing anybody. They let anybody in the park, and we'll play them. We're getting to see, because of the World Baseball Classic, we're getting to see maybe a little bit more of the youth movement, for lack of a better term, than we might. Obviously, Tim Anderson, Lance Lynn showed up for a couple starts, and then that final one before the Classic showed up pretty well. So I guess we're casting a little bit of wider net. Meanwhile, the White Sox are trimming players down. I think they're down to 15 camp now with cuts. Seems like Sundays they like to make cuts, so Hannah gets to report on them. But I've got with me, it's Melissa Sage-Bollenbach. Her technical difficulties all taken care of. She's ready to talk and listen. It's Malachi Hayes. It is Kristina Airdo, who is the again, like I just said before we went on, she's got to have a beat. Her beat has become the World Baseball Classic. Hopefully you've been enjoying her previews and at least one sort of recap. She's gonna be, until she gets disinterested, until she just says, forget it, Brett, I don't want to be on a beat. Who do you think I am? She'll be writing about the World Baseball Classic for us. And of course, our Sunday recapper, it's Hannah LaMotta. She's with us. She did Sundays to begin with, and I don't know, I kicked her to Wednesdays because I'm flex. And now she's back on Sundays. She just wrote the tie game recap today. So she'll have some thoughts about what she's impressed by and underwhelmed by when it comes to Chicago White Sox spring training, getting to about roughly halfway through. Well, what the heck? I know she's got a stack of notes, although Kristina told me she has too. We're going to start once again with Melissa up in the corner and her notebook. Give me something update from a week ago that's maybe pleased you, what you're seeing from the White Sox so far in spring training.
So I even bought myself like a special notebook, like a special podcast notebook. And I'm going to take it with me spring training when I leave on Tuesday.
That's true. We are probably going to try to arrange a podcast, a Camelback Ranch Confidential that we did a few years back with Sean Williams. They're coming back. If I can steal Melissa away from some games enough to maybe report from the ground in Arizona, that is coming soon. But until then, with the special notebook, give it to me, Melissa.
So the pitching, unfortunately, we have a -7 run differential this week. Like last week, we were only at -1, but this week we're at -7. But the good thing about that is that we've only given up 70 runs, which when I was looking at all the other teams, that's really actually pretty awesome, except the fact that we've only scored 63 runs. So yay pitching. I feel like, especially some of these bullpen guys like Santos, Banks, Foster, German, they've looked really good to me. So that's been a positive, I think. But then on the flip side, I know we don't have TA and we haven't really seen much from Benintendi and things like that, but I'm a little nervous about the scoring again this year.
1-1 games are like the games for the White Sox. I hope it doesn't carry on into the regular season, but we might not be the last time we see 9 innings of 1-1 baseball. Malachi, what's got you excited?
Well, I still have many of the juices of the Southside Irish Parade flowing through my veins. So please take everything I say with a grain of salt. But I'm really loving what I'm seeing out of Jake Berger this spring. Now there haven't been a ton of offensive bright spots, like you said, but the dude for 2 straight years has shown in his brief cups of coffee at the big league level that he's does nothing but mash when he makes contact. He still has some issues making contact. He's still striking out too much, but he's got like what four homers, 8 driven in, something like that already this spring. He's going to strike out a lot, but you get him the right matchups. The dude's a major league player. You get him 300 at bats against the right pitchers, and put him in a position to succeed. He can give you 25 home runs. So I'm really liking what I'm seeing out of him, and I hope the Pedro Grifol in the front office can go against all odds and figure out the right way to use him and keep him on the roster.
Are we cursed or blessed since your mean Mercedes had, got his footprint with the White Sox? Are we always going to have a your mean player like every year? Because Berger does seem to be a little your mean.
That seems like a cursed question. I'm going to let that one right by.
All right. That was my parade question. Kristina, what has got you excited? You've been taking on extra helpings of coverage so far. That is enthusiasm I love to see. But from what you've seen good and bad. I believe 2 wins out of 3, which is you're going in a different direction than last year, and I am loving it. You're owed it. But in those wins, what have you seen that's got you excited?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go ahead and agree with what Malachi just said. Going with Jake Berger, he's leading the team right now in home runs, which we didn't necessarily expect it, but I definitely love to see it. Like his OPS is 898, even though he's only batting 250. I'll take that. I'm just kind of like going off what he just said, but also Yasmani Grandal, is he back? Maybe. I'm getting really excited about him. Yeah, exactly. Thumbs up and fingers crossed all around, but that's my guy. And he had a tough run last year, extremely hard to defend him. So hopefully we'll get him back, and get that production that we saw at the end of 2021 there, because that it seems like the odds that we know. Cease, because it was like the most wild start I think I've ever seen was, he's got a 37 ERA in spring training right now, which is hilarious and somewhat sad, but I'm not really worried about him at all. I think that we're still going to see really great things from him, but I think my last touching point is Oscar Colas. I mean, he's pretty much the talk of the town right now. Will we be seeing him starting opening day? Hopefully, is what I want to say, but just the power that we're seeing from him is phenomenal. So I'm really excited about it. We definitely need that lefty power bat, and looks like maybe he could.
To follow up on Berger, on Baseball Reference, they have the opponent quality for spring training, and obviously that starts low. It's going to get higher as the spring goes on. He's at 7 opponent quality, and what he's been hitting against, that's AA, but I want to say that's a little bit higher than other numbers I've seen. So he's certainly not just feasting on weakness, although of course if his average opponent is AA, he should be feasting. Of course that doesn't explain some guys who aren't. So hey, you line it up against the guys that are sent out to face you, and I guess last week of spring training, when he's going to make a cut really hard, if he's still mashing, you gotta like his chances of somehow maybe sticking. Okay, Hannah, we've covered like the whole roster, so I hate to think that you're just going to be forced to double up on somebody, but you can surprise me or not. Who's impressed you so far through a couple recaps?
I got 2, so I'll surprise you on one, and the other has already been said. But first, I will go with Grandal again. I feel like the hype video that they tweeted about him at the beginning, that really honestly just pumped me up a little bit, and I was like, okay. I just feel like his attitude is different as well, and he's actively showing that. And I mean, he's been great so far. So, I think last year, don't want to talk about that at all, but I think that he has the potential to, he seems to get a lot of criticism. So I think he has the potential to kind of shut everyone up again, because the power is there. He has the skills to be a very good catcher. And then I'll go with Yoan Moncada. Nobody's talked about him yet, which is surprising to me, because he's also on the Grandal hate train, very criticized player. So
wonder why that might be.
What he's been doing in spring training and in the World Baseball Classic has been great. And I just finally see there's a mixture of power and just getting hits, extra base hits, everything like that. I can see that, and if he can be consistent, I feel like the key with both of those guys is if you have Grandal and Moncada being consistent, that changes the entire lineup, because those are 2 people that are very important in the lineup and can change the entire lineup based on how they're performing. So if they're performing like they were in the past and not last year, that gives the team a very big chance to win. And hopefully this spring training I'll be able to cover a game that the White Sox win in general. I'm 0-2 and
You got a
1.
tie.
Yeah, I guess it's better than a loss. So we're at 0-2 and 1 right now, so that's fine.
Hannah is making her bid to take over hosting duties by previewing the second half of this podcast with a little shout out to the World Baseball Classic. But yeah, Ioanna's doing what he and Cuba needs him to do. I started slow, as Kristina pointed out, slow, both him and Luis, but got things going. And who knew about Yasmani? Just sort of bait him with a little social media, bait him with some hype. And he's like, okay, that's right. I'm supposed to play ball here for 18 million a year. Okay, no order because it's the more negative side before we go to our break. But, shout out what or who is disappointing you so far in spring training. Have at it, field.
I'm going to go with Billy Hamilton. Like, I love him. I think his energy, his attitude, his speed, just being a good teammate. Like, I really wanted him to see him do well in spring training. And I mean, he's not being Billy the hitter. And we need him to like at least hit like a little bit. I think that there have been so many like kind of surprising offensive people like Hanser Alberto and things like that. It's like, how are you going to make a spot for him? Like, I just can't see it getting carved out to find a hole to fit him in. And that makes me really sad because I think he's an awesome dude. So
you can't steal first base. If anybody can, he can, but so far he hasn't. So, okay. Other disappointments.
It's kind of hard to say because spring training is great because all of the good things you see are obviously very meaningful and will carry over to the regular season. But any of the bad things
exactly.
are,
you got it.
March, it doesn't matter. So that being said, I'm obviously not going to make a huge deal out of one Dylan Cease start in which the stat line was pretty badly inflated because he didn't finish either inning, and the barely out of college kid that they brought in to clean up that last out or two let everyone come around. So that being said, given what we know with Dylan and his how finicky his mechanics are and how finicky the mental side of his game is, how is he going to be impacted by the pitch clock? He seems like a kind of guy who's potentially going to be negatively impacted by having the pace kind of set for him rather than being allowed to, kind of be in his zone and move at his own speed. So, I mean, he's a professional. I'm sure he'll adjust. And like I said, it is one start and it really doesn't mean a whole lot, but you don't want to see that kind of flustered, can't really find the zone stuff that we saw out of him plenty of in 2019, 2020. You don't want to keep seeing that again with, if we do, I'm going to start getting a little more worried.
Yeah, Malachi, I get flushed and excited whenever I see White Sox social media. So I don't know if this was exactly the way it went, but I think before his start, he was presented with some video game like elite award too. So he might have been just like completely distracted by this crazy trophy he got and was showing off to Pedro. And so, it might not just be pitch clock. He might have just been so excited to be one of the 20 or 25 diamond players or something or other. Oh, wow, I'm out of my element. Please, Kristina or Hannah, rescue me and tell me something you are disappointed about in watching the White Sox.
Yeah, I can kind of keep going on the pitching train here. Just looking at a bullpen perspective, since we are out, unfortunately, a Liam Hendricks this year, but Jimmy Lambert and Jonathan Stiver's only hit one inning, obviously, but it was kind of subpar nonetheless. And if these guys are going to maybe be coming out of the pen, Jimmy Lambert's had a tough time in his 2 2/3 inning he's had, giving up 6 hits and 3 runs in a small amount of time is not ideal. Hopefully that's not going to transition into this year. And even looking at more, hopefully we wouldn't have to see him that much, but I think with the way our bullpen is structured, we will be for sure. And then on that same train, Jake Diekman, he hasn't really done anything impressive in the slightest. Did I expect him to? Certainly not, but I would expect maybe slightly better than what we've seen. He's usually hanging around a 4.5 ERA, and he's like way worse than that right now. So we'll see what he has to do, but I just want that the bullpen that we paid for, if we're going to pay for it, that they produce. So, I guess we'll see. I don't know. I'm not
Bite
panicking.
your tongue, Kristina. That is 2022 trade deadline centerpiece acquisition. Jake Diekman, you're criticizing. You realize what you're doing. I believe last week his stat line was good enough. I think Melissa will validate this, that we were like, oh, hey, he's been okay so far. And just in 1 week, he's gone back to being Jake Diekman with a beard. Hannah, what you got?
I wouldn't say this person I'm like disappointed with, just kind of want to see more of Luis Robert. I don't know, the first game that I watched in the World Baseball Classic, he was just swinging away at the low sliders and he was just making no contact, and it looked terrible at first, and that kind of brought me back to like that period of time where he was just striking out every single at bat, and I was like, oh no. But I don't know, I just kind of want to see like more power from him, because that's like what he is known for doing, and he has improved in recent games, at least getting extra base hits and singles and hard hit balls. But yeah, he's also very important as well, and he is kind of like one of the stars of this team, so just want to see him be the guy that we know he can be, and just stay healthy, stay consistent, finally, I guess.
The pandemic season will forever just bastardize how we look at seasons, because it was the first half, it was just a month. If you recall, Luis Robert Jr. was basically maybe the MVP frontrunner. He was an MVP candidate in the first half. In the second half, which is just the second month of the season, is exactly what Hannah feared and saw in that first World Baseball Classic game, which was just having no clue at the plate, just deciding to swing. Like me at this age, at this time, with I'll say without glasses, because I've got some athletic pride, without glasses, just flailing away in like the 80-mile-an-hour batting cage. Sorry, Luis, that was a really low blow. I'll shut up now. Hey, let's take a break. I'm going to pass the mic to, get ready, Kristina. Go pass the mic to Kristina. She is going to give us a little bit of a broad look at what's happened so far in the World Baseball Classic. Leave some time maybe for a little discussion of the World Baseball Classic. I believe Team Italy has moved on to some other round. I still don't really understand how this thing works, but I'm suddenly more engaged and excited than ever. But if you're excited like me, please pause for 1 minute. SB Nation and Vox desperately need to sell you something. Please consider buying it, and we'll be back in 1 minute. Hey, White Sox fans, Brett Ballantini here, lucky enough once again to host, well, briefly, just for a few more precious moments, Southside Sox podcast. It is still the Southside Sox podcast, and it is number 138, as far as I can tell, and as far as I can count. We are going to devote the second half, or whatever's left of this program, to the World Baseball Classic. We sort of skipped it last podcast because, well, it's not my forte. I stay up, as my staff will attest, I stay up all night running this site. Oh, you lucky readers and listeners, thank me. But not always watching the World Baseball Classic. I know someone who has been. It's Kristina Airdo, and I'm passing the mic to her to give us a little bit of an overview of what's going on, spotlight some of the White Sox players, whatnot. Talk away, Kristina.
All right. Yeah. Thank you. It's been honestly really fun to watch so far. There's been so much passion too from all of the teams. Like, these guys are just so excited to support their country and represent them. So it's really cool to see that there's been some teams that have been surprising others. Like you did mention it, like Italy. I think that they were like 15th ranked in the power rankings out of 20. And they were one of the first 3 teams to move on. So we have Italy, Japan, and Cuba have all moved on so far. So really exciting. The field's going to go from 20 teams to 8 teams, and then they'll play half year. So really excited to see how that keeps going. Just kind of looking at what some of these teams are doing and some names that we know across MLB. I mean, Japan is a powerhouse. They've shown that, and we knew that was coming in, especially bolstered with Shohei Ohtani. But they're the only one that's gone undefeated in pool play. Shohei has been insane, as he usually is. His slash line is like the most stupid thing I've seen. It's 500 average, 684 on base, and 1,000 slugging, with a 1.684 OPS. So, which is I don't know how he does it. At least one RBI in every single game so far. He had a 1-hitter the other day and also had a double that same game. He's had 3-run bomb today. I don't understand. The man is superhuman. It's awesome though to watch him. I don't know if you guys caught the USA game last night. We can totally touch on that too if anyone watched it. I myself didn't get to see too much, but we did play Great Britain. If I think I said this too previously in one of the previews, if it was a soccer match, I would be way more concerned playing them. And it worked out definitely in our favor. But shout out, I don't know if anyone saw this, Trace Thompson, our old friend, he hit a homer just as the first run of the game against us, which was kind of hilarious. And
Kristina,
what is that on my bingo card?
What is the inside scoop on those preposterous? I ran down to the mall and got this pressed as some cheapy 1978 iron-on transfer uniforms for Great Britain. This is a Creative Cradle British invasion, and they have like generic like fruit punch across their what is up with that?
I'm not sure. They definitely slacked on the uniform there. My guess is that they weren't going to qualify, and then they were like, oh shit, maybe we need uniforms. So I'm not sure. They're definitely my least favorite of the ones that I've seen so far. So excellent question.
Oh, fair. All right.
If it was a fashion show, they'd be losing. However, they're also losing the baseball game, so it doesn't matter either way. Just to note, they did lose earlier today, 18-8 to our Canadian friends up north. So I'm not sure that anyone was pitching particularly well there, considering it was a home run derby. But yeah. There's been a lot of action.
And Team USA is playing tonight, I think, as we're recording, and it's anticipated like 50,000, like some preposterous number of fans for the USA Mexico game, correct?
Yeah, that I actually, like a second ago, I had it on my TV in the background, and they just showed like the stadium. It's USA versus Mexico, and they are like all out right now, and I think they're playing in Miami if I'm not mistaken. So I'm guessing the turnout and fans there is just like unbelievable. So
they're in,
I'm really excited to watch that.
Yeah, they're in Arizona.
Gotcha. Honestly, either of our southern cities, like it's gonna be a blast in that stadium. I wish that I could like just be in that atmosphere. And we do have our very own Tim Anderson tonight. He's starting at shortstop, so really looking forward to seeing him.
Yeah, what's the feeling? What's the feeling been? I don't think I guess I have been involved with this site during World Baseball Classic. I don't remember us paying any attention to it. That's because I didn't have Kristina Airdo around to like, do the work. So I mean, there's your explanation. But each of the rest of you, obviously Kristina's into it, and she has proven it by her need for coffee the next morning. But you other three, I mean, how interesting has this been to you? I think it is pretty compelling. It's different. It's odd. It's in the middle of spring training. People are complaining about that. It's like, well, when else are you going to do this? You'd be complaining if it was in December. You'd be complaining if somehow you'd have to stop the season to do it the way the NHL did during the Olympics and have done in the past. Just stop the season for a month to play the Olympics. That's not going to go over well with baseball fans. Hannah, let's start with you. You're feeling about this. You've been able to watch much and sort of engaging to see like TA on Team USA.
Oh yeah, well, first off, we have another one of our own participating in the game tonight. I actually just looked over and Jason Benetti is covering it, which is kind of superhuman to me. I know it's close to Camelback Ranch, but he literally was just covering the game today for NBC Sports Chicago for us, and now he's on this national stage covering this USA game. So honestly, that just like makes me so happy already, because I'm like, it feels like I can just watch the game and have my announcer. But I'm on my spring break, so I guess it's not unfortunately, but I've been up until like 8 a.m. I've been watching every single game because I am a big Shohei fan, and he is playing at 4 a.m. and 5 a.m. So last night I stayed up to watch the game that started at 5 a.m. Central Time. Went to bed at like 8. I've been watching every single one of the, overnight games. I think even more than the ones that are like in broad daylight here, which is kind of, ironic, but my sleep schedule's not well, but I love it. I love it. I mean, anytime that I can watch baseball, and especially because we have so many of our own players representing so many different countries, it's very fun to watch. I can see Moncada and Robert Jr. on Cuba, and Tim Anderson tonight, and the atmosphere has just been amazing. I love seeing how the different countries and places, like how they celebrate baseball and how they all come together. And yeah, I love it. I love being able to watch it. I don't want it to end because I'm gonna miss my midnight games and nights games. But yeah, I'm very interested. I have I'm excited to watch the USA game tonight and just the rest of them going on. And I think personally Japan is gonna, win it all. I think they're the clear winner, but someone might surprise, so you never know.
We're all baseball fans, so I think it's safe to say we're all pretty big Shohei fans. And the good news is the odds I saw, not that I pay any attention to betting gambling odds, have the White Sox in the middle of the pack to sign Shohei Ohtani next year. They're like, I want to say it was like 33-1. Bad news is I think the Cubs are the second most likely team to sign Shohei. That would not be good. That would make me sad. So on that really sad note, let me kick it up to Malachi. What's your vibe on this?
Yeah, I can't wait till all the offers leak of like a 40-year, $500 million contract for Shohei with like 30 team options at the end.
But it was the best deal and the most money,
That's
Malachi.
the most money, the seat at the table, and get the platitudes out of the way. But yeah, no, the World Baseball Classic is amazing. There's two kind of sides to it that I really like that are kind of on opposite sides of the same coin. And one is that you get a chance to see some of the best players in the world that are not playing in Major League Baseball. Yesterday morning, we got to see Roki Sasaki pitch for Japan, who is I would be willing to bet is almost certainly the best pitcher on the planet who is not in Major League Baseball right now, and is probably, if he were in Major League Baseball, would be in the conversation to begin with. This is a guy who threw something like 17 perfect innings in a row last year at age 20 in the Japanese league, throws 102 miles an hour. He's incredible. You get to see for Korea, Young-Ho Lee is their shortstop, who's probably going to be posted after this year, and he might be one of the 2 or 3 best free agents in a pretty weak class. Next winter. You get to see a lot of Cuban players, Cuban legends like Alfredo Despaigne is a guy who's got 400 professional homers, mostly in Cuba and Japan. They've got guys who are absolutely tearing apart the Japanese league, throwing 102 miles an hour out of the bullpen. There's that stuff's fun. And on the other hand, it's also kind of fun to see the opposite of that, where we get so used to seeing relievers, everyone comes out throwing 99 miles an hour with a nasty slider, and everything is a walk or a strikeout or a home run because these guys are all so bloody good. It's kind of fun to see, maybe Adam Wainwright aside, some dude who's been putting around in the Dutch B League for the last 10 years coming out with like an 86 mile an hour fastball, kind of dotting the edges, throwing loopy breaking balls. And it's like, it's a different kind of baseball. The level of competition, I'd say, isn't necessarily any lower than what we see in the major leagues in terms of just competitiveness and fun. 18-8 Great Britain and Commonwealth games aside, they can whatever, screw them. But I think that's pretty fun to see too. And it's not just all about the gas and the home runs. You gotta, it's a little bit of a diversity in play style that we don't necessarily always get a taste of. So I've been enjoying those aspects particularly.
And that'll be underscored by Italy going on and winning the whole thing, because clearly they'll be doing something that is not the traditional gas, power, etc. So
also with the interesting and novel strategy of like not using players who have been in Italy within the last, I don't know.
Right. Very novel.
Like it is not mine to judge, but it is just funny when you see some of these teams pop up with 2 players actually born in the country that where
you apply the fake facial hair and no questions asked. Okay, no questions asked. Melissa, digging it?
Well, I'm going to be there on Wednesday, so I get to see them play Colombia. And I'm so really excited to see if somebody brings a horn for the US because that's been super fun. It's really annoying, but it's been really cool that, like Kristina said, to see how excited people are across the world. And I heard there was a little bit of a lameness to the Diamondback Stadium for the first game. So I'm hoping as we get some momentum going that by Wednesday it's going to be really exciting. So I think we're going to miss Lance Lynn. I think Lance is supposed to pitch on Monday. So we're going to miss him. But yeah, I'm super excited. And the one White Sox guy too that doesn't get talked about is Nicholas Padilla, who's playing for Puerto Rico. I did the prospect, the White Sox top prospect story on him. So it was kind of cool that, being the top prospect, he gets to experience this whole thing, because I can only imagine being a part of something that's so big at like such a young age and still being a prospect and things. And then to kind of go off what Malachi said about the seeing the wide range of abilities there are, like the guy who's the firefighter during the day, like all day, like goes to play baseball at night. Like what an experience for them. Like, yeah, I mean, I just think that that's really cool too. So there's so many, I think, unique aspects to it, and people are getting more excited about it. And because Team USA is so good, you know, in years past, I don't think we've quite had the Mike Trouts and, you know, well, Bryce Harper was supposed to be in it. So I think now that it's kind of collecting the really the best of the best in MLB, it's just going to kind of get steam from here. So,
and you know what, just going off Melissa, earlier today, I was seeing like some sports journalists, I might have even been a baseball journalist, like complaining about how it's like boring and like, why are we even doing this? Like, what's the point? I mean, I think you guys pretty much all of them. And, you know, baseball exists outside of just America, and people love it just as much as we do. So, I mean, just looking at how the crowds in these games, like, I don't know if you guys saw the Italy versus Chinese Taipei game. Like there was a home run in I don't know, with the 6th inning or something that went ahead by 1 run, and the stadium erupted like it was like Game 7 of the World Series. Like, I mean, it was unbelievable. So I'm with you guys. I think it's awesome, and I think it's like a treat to watch, honestly, as a baseball fan.
I believe Tyrone Palmer, among maybe others from our staff, put that particular writer down in his place by just saying, you know, listen, baseball exists outside of the US of A. We may not want to acknowledge that. We don't like to acknowledge a lot of those things. Our staff does, because we're progressive. Sorry if that burns your ears, some of you listening. So we know better, but it'd be nice if more of the country, and I think the excitement of this and the dynamic international talent, and then even these, I keep bringing up Italy. Okay, well, why not? Hey, okay, I don't know why. But I mean, even these like maybe surprise teams sneaking around, whether or not anyone could really trace themselves to actually living in the country.
Hey,
Malachi, they've all done that thing where they like spend $1 to buy the home in a sort of a dilapidated you know, area, right? You know, they bought one of those old stone homes, and that's their claim, or at least that's the story that might be making the rounds.
I'm just saying, if the Czech Republic can pull it together and make the tournament with a bunch of like math teachers and plumbers, they can find some actual Italians who can play baseball. To, you know, I've been there. They have leagues there. I know folks who played over there. It's a thing, you know. They throw the like leave Matt Harvey and his Wario mustache home. Like, I've seen enough Matt Harvey. Like,
don't talk about Nicky Lopez that way. He's from Naperville.
Yeah, he's a local.
Yeah, all right. Well, okay, Italy's not going to win because they're just not playing inside the lines. Oh well. But boy, the facial hair. Well, aside from Matt Harvey's playing for Team Italy. What in the world is going on here? Okay. And, yeah, but hopefully it, you know, this will be, I mean, this does seem different. It seems like that maybe there's the dynamic international talent. We have more, I mean, we have, I would assume, more prominent Cuban players in the major leagues now than last WBC. I know the last one got canceled. So, you know, hopefully this is only going to broaden things and open even USA fans' eyes and say, oh, you know, holy cow. And especially if Team USA doesn't win, that is, I mean, I know that people are going to just shake their fist and say somehow there was some sort of ripoff, but you know, if the Team USA doesn't win at all, I mean, that better open your eyes. If not, if Japan does prevail or Cuba somehow continues to rally. Okay, Kristina, you handled that deftly. Thank you for sort of shepherding our World Baseball Classic coverage here on the podcast and on site. As long as she keeps taking the pen from me, I will keep giving it to her. Thank you for your coverage so far, Kristina, and I hope there is much more to come. Hopefully there will be a lot of fun things to report on, and hey, we're going to have some feet on the ground coming up from Melissa as well, and that will be from spring training as well. We're going to have some interesting podcasts to come, and of course, continued interesting coverage of spring training. Thanks for hanging with us. Thanks, everybody on the show with me. We'll be back probably Sunday, if not sooner. Take care, everybody.
Can I say something really